All right, guys, what is going on? I hope everyone's out there staying high speed and motivated and accomplishing their goals, whatever they may be. Just right off the bat, I actually just got back from the gym and had a conversation with somebody in the gym about this exact topic, and I thought it was a great opportunity to do my best to transcribe that awesome conversation, and I think hopefully helpful to that person conversation to you guys, because I'm sure there's somebody out there who has the exact same question, whether or not they should be joining the infantry. And honestly, it's something that I get hit up on all the time on different social platforms. So I think this is a video that is completely necessary. And I'm sure there's a lot of you out there that have this question and would really appreciate some insight that is experience driven, not just like data points or things that you can just look up on Google. I want to try to give you some information from somebody who's been there. And before I go any further, when I say somebody who's been there, like, I've got my blue cord, okay? So I know what I'm talking about. I'm sure there are different stories. Everybody in the Army has a different story, but I can give you the down and dirty truth on a lot of things that you might be wondering about. And I'm going to keep this video, we're going to do this in one clip. So I might, trip over my words a little bit. I might stutter a little bit, but I want to keep this as genuine as possible for you guys, because I think it's a very important thing to hopefully get right as you're deciding to move forward or even begin your career in the Army, especially when you're talking about something like the infantry. So I think what's first important to talk about is why you might think that why you're thinking, probably are thinking, you want to join the infantry. I say probably are because you landed on this video, right? I think that if you're anything like me, and probably the majority of guys that did end up going to the infantry, you either, one, don't know what anything else in the Army consists of. A lot of people think that the Army is the infantry, right? They think every job in the Army is just the infantry. They think every soldier is, doing what the infantry would do, when in reality, that's not the case. The infantry is just one career field out of 150-ish career fields in the Army. Most soldiers in the Army are not infantry. They're not doing things that your average infantryman would be doing. You know what I mean? So, and I think that's one thing to consider, is that there are a lot of different options out there besides the infantry, but we're going to stay on the infantry, okay? That's just something to consider. I also think that if you're thinking about the infantry, it's probably because you want to be as, quote unquote, high speed as possible during your career in the Army. And so I'm going to go ahead and move into what I mean by that now, by saying, if you go into the infantry, one of the biggest perks about holding that MOS, that military occupational specialty in the Army, is that you get access, you really get first dibs on a lot of the HUA schools that the Army offers. What I'm talking about there is, Air Assault School, Airborne School, Pathfinder School, and of course, Ranger School. And I do have my Ranger tab as well. I actually have all those things, okay? So I know what I'm talking about there too. But that is very important to consider. When I first started my career, I was actually a Cav Scout, a dirty Cav Scout. And I'll be honest, I just didn't really know what I was getting into when I joined. I just walked in the recruiting office one day and I told him I wanted to do all the cool stuff. And he showed me a Cav Scout video and he got me with that because it was a pretty high speed video. But not to say it was a bad MOS. I just probably would have chose infantry right off the bat if I knew better. You know what I mean? Because that's kind of what I wanted. I should have just went infantry. But you get access to all the different schools. Not to say it's going to be guaranteed to you, because you're still going to have to earn them. You're going to have to be in specific units to definitely get those slots for sure. But those schools are, some of them are only, they're not going to be only coded for infantry, but they're definitely coded for infantry. A lot of them are made for infantry personnel, right? So if you're outside of the infantry, you're holding a different MOS, it's going to be harder to get into some of those schools, especially something like Pathfinder or even Ranger, right? So with that though, there's going to be an expectation to be able to perform at those sorts of levels. If you want to hold some sort of leadership position in the infantry, it's going to be highly encouraged of you, highly encouraged of you to pass those schools, to train up for appropriately and to pass those schools, namely, Ranger School. And not to say it's a requirement. There's plenty on the enlisted side. There's plenty of sergeant majors out there in the infantry that do not have a Ranger tab, but it's kind of like one of those things where you should have a Ranger tab. No offense to anybody out there that doesn't have a Ranger tab. I don't think it's like you have to have a tab to be a leader or a good leader or anything like that. But that is going to be like a pressure point. Okay, so make sure you want to do those sorts of things as well, which I assume you do if you want to join the infantry, but that's definitely part of the gig. And if you're trying to go in as an officer, you'll go to Ranger School right after IBOLC, and you should definitely pass. If you don't pass Ranger School right after IBOLC, you may not get another chance. You probably will, but you may not. And if you show up to your first unit without a tab, that's not going to be a good start. It's not a good look. They kind of expect all infantry officers to have a Ranger tab. So your life's going to be hard until you get to captain, where you go to MCCC, and then you might get a second chance at Ranger School. And then if you don't pass then, you probably need to start looking for a different career field or even getting out of the Army. I'm just being real, okay? You guys that are watching this, please back me up on this. If you know what I'm talking about, drop in your experience on that in the comments so that people know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so that can be a good thing, and it can be, I guess I wouldn't say a bad thing, but it can be a point of pressure for you. Okay, so make sure that you're ready to, if you want to go do the high speed stuff, you have to be ready to accept that, and you have to be able to maintain that through the bad times, through the good times, and you just have to keep that drive because it is going to be expected of you. Now, another thing is, if you think the infantry is, I'll just say like the movies, right? Let's just say you have no Army experience whatsoever, and you watched your favorite, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but anyway, the favorite movie, and they were infantrymen. It just seemed like so cool and high speed all the time, and everything they were doing was just the coolest thing in the world. That's just not the real reality of what the Army infantryman does on a day-to-day basis. Okay, the infantry especially, it's very notorious in that job field to do a lot of details, to do a lot of work that is, I guess, outside of just training how to kill other forces, soldiers, right? And for as example, cutting the grass like every week, that's usually done by infantry dudes. Talking about gate guard, all sorts of different details that you're not gonna like, and you're gonna think, man, I did not sign up to do this. That a lot of that falls on the infantry guys to do that. And the reason for that is because you're not always gonna be when you're not deployed, there's just not a whole lot of things for you to be doing besides honing in your craft and going to the field and things like that. And even that doesn't take 8 to 10 hours out of the day. You know what I'm saying? So there is plenty of white space for infantry to be able to do extra tasks that are beneficial to the unit at large. And a lot of that is stuff that's not really fun to do. Okay. So that's the reality of it. But to caveat on that, and yes, I said caveat, you will get opportunities to go to the field a lot and to learn how to shoot, how to move, how to communicate, how to get really good at your job, which is to close with and destroy the enemy. But that comes with some pressure as well, because you're going to be going to the field a lot. That means you're going to be away from real life a lot. You're going to be away from the family a lot. You're going to be away from free time a lot. And sometimes it can get a bit arduous to be going to the field so much that you kind of experience a little bit of burnout there, okay? So you really have to make sure, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to be really good at it, and I like being in the field. Being in the field isn't fun, okay? I mean, it can be fun. There's definitely fun parts, but it's definitely long. There's a lot of times there's no internet. It's dirty. It's you don't get good food. It's hard on you. It's hard on the body. But if you're somebody who wants that struggle and you want to be able to go through those hard experiences and grow from it, then the infantry is perfect for you. And I will say that even though all the times that I've had in the field, the long hours, the shitty coffee, the bad food, the endless MRE, backups, all that stuff, I wouldn't trade it for the world, man, because you learn a lot, not only about your craft, and you do get to do some really fun and cool things, but you learn a lot about yourself, and you definitely grow and get stronger as an individual. So going through hardships is usually, there's always like a good, I like to think there's always a good that comes out of any hardship that you go through, okay? Even the ones that are not self-inflicted. So the infantry will definitely give you hardships to go through, without a doubt, okay? So just be ready for that. If that's something you want, and you understand it's not always going to be roses, it's actually like very rarely going to be, sunshine and roses. You're ready to grow and get stronger as a person, then that's perfect for you. Let's see. Another thing is opportunities, right? So I already kind of touched on the schools, the hula schools. You get a lot of opportunities to go to hula schools, but other opportunities, what I mean when I say opportunities, to expand on that, is different units, different locations, different places to get stationed at. And I don't want to say it's endless, because it's not endless, but the infantry I could be wrong, but I want to say the infantry probably has the most spread of where you can go, what you could be potentially doing, especially as you move up in the ranks. All the big army bases definitely have infantry units at them, and they're all going to be unique in their own way, okay? So they're either going to be light infantry, or they're going to be striker brigades, which is, you look up the striker combat vehicle after this, I won't go too into it, or they'll be even armored brigades, okay? And with those comes different skill sets that you'll learn. And there's other ones, there's mechanized and stuff like that, but anyways, my point is that there's different skills that you'll be able to learn as you go throughout your career. There's different posts and opportunities that you can put in for, volunteer for, that you wouldn't get if you were in a different MOS. For example, if you wanted to go to Ranger Regiment, you wanted to be like the best infantryman you could possibly be, because that's really what Ranger Regiment is. It's like the elite of infantry, okay? A lot of people think they're like operators, but that's really not what it is. It's more like the varsity of infantry. They're like the best infantry the Army's got. And they have unique mission sets, but that's like them in a nutshell. If you want to go do that, being infantry is like, okay, guaranteed you can go to RASP. If you fall into some other MOS, they might not want you, only because you're not on the MOS list of, qualified MOSs to go to regiment, try out for regiment, hopefully become a ranger. So that's just one example. But infantry doesn't really have that problem. They're very diverse, where they can go to a lot of different units and profess in a lot of different skills, okay? You've got over the 101st, you got Campbell, so that's all about air assault. So if you go over there, you're definitely going to go to air assault school, and you'll learn everything you need to learn about being an air assault infantryman. If you go to Fort Bragg, you're gonna go to airborne school, and you're gonna know everything there is to know about being an airborne infantryman. You're gonna do so much airborne operations, you're gonna get sick of it. Okay. If you feel like, okay, I want to do mechanized stuff, then there's tons of other posts for that. You can ride around on Bradley fighting vehicles. You can ride around on strikers. You'll learn a whole bunch of new skills there, and so forth. So that's kind of my point there, is that the infantryman is kind of like the standard fighting soldier that the Army is based off of, and so there's a lot of opportunities that come with that. So I think that's definitely a positive. All right, guys, a quick plug-in. I actually just went and watched the video while I was eating dinner to make sure it was all good. Quick plug-in here is something I missed. If you're thinking about going into the infantry, it doesn't matter where you come from. If you already have Army experience, you don't have any Army experience whatsoever, you have to make sure that you're taking your fitness very seriously, okay? Because that is like one of the number one things that you're going to be able to have to be good at. You're going to get judged on it throughout your entire career. You're going to have to hold a standard. You're going to be doing PT every day. You're going to be doing 2-a-days. It's very important to be good with fitness as an infantryman. So if you have any inclination of going infantry at all, start training now if you're not already, okay? Luckily, grittysoldier.com has all the fitness. We'll take care of you there. Just go to grittysoldier.com, pick up a program, you're going to get squared away for infantry. Shameless plug, I know. But seriously, if you are thinking about it, you got to have your fitness up to par, okay? And it's like everything, hybrid, okay? Hybrid military fitness is what I like to call it, and it includes strength, power, endurance, speed, everything. You got to be at least mediocre at all of it, okay? All right. Being in the infantry is also a good decision to start out your Army career, if you are even thinking about the infantry, because if you join the infantry, you're not necessarily like stuck there, okay? What I mean by that is you can go, you can give it your best shot. If it turns out not best for you, that's okay. There's a lot of different job fields that you could potentially volunteer or transfer into after your certain amount of time with being in the infantry. This is especially true if you're going to be like an officer or something like that. But it's if you're going to go in as an enlisted soldier, I would say you have all the way up to the time you make an NCO. You make NCO, so sergeant E5. That's you have all that time, which is on average 3 to 4 to even like 5 years, where you have time to really experience what it's like to be a grunt. You'll be a private for a lot of it and a specialist for a lot of it, so you'll really be like in the mud doing the thing, and you'll really get, you'll get enough experience to decide on whether or not that's right for you. And if you want to stay in the Army, that's no problem. You can always just change your MOS. Okay, it's easier said than done, but you're not like closed to any of the doors for any of the MOSs. I don't think so. There might be like 1 or 2, but most of the MOSs that you can transfer into, being an infantryman is an advantage because, like I said before, you're sort of like the basic combat fighter. So you have you're like an expert at the basic skills. So you're a good feeder for anything that's more advanced to that. Okay, if you guys have examples of that, please drop that in the comments. But again, if you're an officer, if you go in as an officer and you have this inkling of being in the infantry, I would say go for it, man. Because first of all, I'll say like, being a platoon leader in the infantry, if you really want to experience like the most leadership you can possibly experience as a junior officer, it's going to be an infantry PL. It's going to be hard on you. It's going to be fun in its own way, but that you won't really find that anywhere else to the degree that you would in the infantry. And then you can always sign up with a branch detail and just do it until you're a captain and go to another MOS. Or you can just stay in the infantry and be a battalion commander or a general one day. You know what I mean? So, but you have opportunities. And when you become a captain, that's when all the opportunities open up. And being an infantryman, again, is a really good feeder to all those different job fields that you might be interested in. Okay. And you get so much leadership experience. It might not be like the best experiences, but you get a lot of leadership experience along the way, and that's completely transferable to being a better officer in those other career fields. Okay, so yeah, and if you I always divert to saying, and this comes from, again, I said I was a Cav Scout before, so I'll say, and I eventually went infantry, but I'll say if you have any desire and something is just itching inside of you to do this for one reason or the other, I feel like you're gonna regret it if you don't just go for it. Okay, I think if you really, if you're like 60% of the way thinking I definitely want to go infantry, then you should just go infantry. Okay, because if you don't, you might end up with some regrets later. You might have a certain amount of disdain for the MOS you do find yourself in because you actually wanted to do this other thing, and you're not going to be as good of an asset to the Army as you could have been, and you're just not going to be, maybe as happy. Sometimes having a more cush job doesn't result in a better quality of life. You might not be in the field as much, you might not have to eat MREs as much, your body might feel a little better, but your your satisfaction with yourself won't be as high. Okay, that's kind of how I see it. Okay, so you don't want to miss out on the opportunities that you actually genuinely have interest in. I say if you have enough interest in it, you should just go for it, man. I think it's worth going for it. And now let me transition to this real quick. A lot of people think that if you join the infantry, you're not going to have any transferable skills outside of the Army when you're done. So you've just wasted your time, regardless of how long you've been in the Army for. And I think there is something to that, but I also think that's not completely fair to say about the infantry, okay? I think if you go into the infantry, I talked about this already, if you go into the infantry and you get all these life skills, you grow as a person, you are able to be, you end up being more resilient because you go through the suck a lot more often, a lot more frequently, and you learn how to deal with that a lot better than if you had never done it before, or you have minimal exposure to it. That is something you can't really replace with anything else. And that is also something that you can apply to anything else, and it will give you a better shot at being successful to anything else. If you can develop your mindset, you can develop your resilience, and develop that no quit, go getter attitude, then the world is your oyster after that. That's why I'm such a big advocate for Ranger School, because that's really what you get out of it. You don't come out of Ranger School as like this hula high speed operator level soldier. You come out there with a whole different type of mindset, where you know that you could potentially do anything out there you want to do, as long as you don't quit. You know what I mean? You've gone through so much, and you've experienced so much failure, but kept pushing anyway because you had to, that you realize by the time you get done with Ranger that, like, man, anything can be done. I just have to keep moving forward, and I just have to make it happen. That's what you get out of Ranger School. That's why I'm always telling people, you gotta go, man, because if for anything else, it doesn't matter, the career stuff doesn't matter, you don't come out as operator level, but you get so much, you grow so much personally as a person, that it's invaluable. So if you ever get a chance to go to Ranger School, you've got to go, and I would definitely push for it no matter what. And then even if you don't even end up ever going to Ranger School, there's a lot of that same aspects that you get through Ranger School just being in the infantry. Okay, so yes, you might not get like all these technical skills that you might or certifications that you might get from other MOSs. You might leave the Army and like nobody really cares if you've been to air assault school, or you jumped out of airplanes, or you even went to Ranger School. Like, maybe nobody cares about that, but it's going to help you personally so much more than, I don't know, having a certificate in IT or something. I genuinely believe that. No, I'm not trying to put down the other MOSs at all. I'm just saying that there is so much more value to the experiences than I think people give it credit for. And I think a lot of guys realize that when they get out. Even the ones that were like talking shit about the infantry at one time, even if they were infantry and talking shit, I think they eventually realize that, and they're like, man. And that's another thing. I'm going on a tangent here. I have not experienced anywhere else in the Army besides the infantry, and a little bit in the Cav, don't get me wrong, because that's combat MOS too. The brotherhood that you will experience in the infantry is unmatched. You're not going to find that in any other MOS. You're just not. I mean, maybe another combat MOS, but especially in the infantry, the brothers, the sisters, now even that you're going to work with and go through those hard experiences with, and have to depend on each other with. They really do become brothers and sisters, and like part of a tribe and a family in your life. And even if that's especially true like during the time you're in the infantry, and even after you leave the infantry, you'll always have those memories with those people. Even if you don't keep in like constant contact with them, you're always going to remember those times. And even if they're the hardest of times, they end up being like the best memories that you have. And that's another reason why, that's one of the reasons why people struggle, like veterans will struggle sometimes when they get out, because they just lost that brotherhood, and it's really tough to find that, especially out in the civilian world. So that's, to me, that's a really big benefit. It's just having a group of like-minded individuals that you can be around, and really, be yourself around and go through those hardest times and those hardest experiences together, and just share that common bond with. I don't know another place you're going to find something that's comparable to that. That's very unique to the infantry world. So that's a whole another benefit. So I have not come up with a whole lot of negatives to going in the infantry, mainly because I'm the kind of person where I like being in the field. I like hardships. I like challenging myself. So even though I've definitely done my fair share of complaining, I'm not like saying that. Definitely complain out loud, but I've always found a way to see the benefits after the suffering, you know what I mean? And it was always worth it. I've always found it to be worth it. All the experiences, all the hard times always paid off in the end, and just made me better for it in the end. So with that all being said, I mean, if you're trying to go into something where it's going to be tough, it's going to be hard, you'll learn a lot. Might not be sitting and learning coding, might not be learning how to do like social media or whatever, I don't know, something that's applicable to today, technical wise, but you will, without a doubt, grow as a person. I'm pretty certain of that. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I don't think I've forgotten too much from the things that I really wanted to hit. I'll say this, if there's anything else that you were hoping to hear on this video, or like, maybe just something in your head that you can think of now that I didn't touch on, please drop that in the comments, and I'll read it, and I'll definitely let you know. I'll give you feedback on that. Again, I wanted to keep this video super chill and transparent, and just do my best to kind of be a bro with you, because I think that's what you deserve. I think you should know exactly what you'd be getting into. That's definitely my 2 cents. I'm not like an infantry recruiter or recruiter in general. I'm just trying to be a guy to give you some down-to-earth, experience-driven advice that can hopefully help you make up your mind. You know what I mean? Because I know it's a hard decision, but it doesn't have to be. Again, I'll divert into saying, hey, if it's something you think you're going to drive some passion from, and you're going to feel good about, and you just, for some reason, it's exciting you, to even think about going to the infantry, then you should probably just do it. What do you got to lose? What's the harm in it? You might as well give it a shot. Okay. Yeah. With that being said, definitely leave a comment if you have any more questions. I already said that, but just don't forget, leave a comment. Definitely like this video if you found any value out of it whatsoever, okay? Because that helps a lot with the YouTube algorithm. The YouTube algorithm is really finicky nowadays. If you're not doing the due process of liking and commenting and all those things, then less people are going to see this video, and that's just doing them a disservice. I really hope this video reaches the people that actually are hoping to get some good feedback and may not have anybody to ask on the topic, and hopefully this was helpful. So yeah, besides that, guys, I've got nothing else for you. Hopefully that was helpful to you, and I will see you on the next one.